All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 9th meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I will call the meeting to order and entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Becker, seconded by Franzen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. And we will now put our mission statement up on the screen here and would invite everyone to take a moment to read it. Okay. The first item on our agenda tonight will be our discussion items, beginning with our board committee updates, and we'll start this evening with the equity committee.
We had a good overview of the strategic plan and the connections it has to equity. I refer you to some of the minutes about that. And then also we talked about kind of a meeting rhythm for the year, where we have reports out from the various schools about their progress towards some of the strategic planning goals and how they relate to equity. And that, I think that'll be really interesting this year to see how that comes together.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for equity committee? Okay. And are there any other updates from board committees? All right, then we will move on to our strategic plan update and we'll turn it over to Dr. Hawkins.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for being patient.
No problem.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hopefully everybody's doing well this evening. All right, well, I'm excited to be able to give you what I believe is now our fourth strategic planning update. Tonight, largely a process update of what work has the district been doing, as well as a little bit of what work have buildings been doing since we last got together. So the first slide for you is just a reminder of the last time we gave a strategic planning update, which I believe was the 5th of June. What did we say our next steps were at that point, right? So during that presentation, our next steps were to finalize the language, bring that language to the board for adoption, begin the process of prioritizing the strategic plan, what will be the emphasis or focus this year, and then creating implementation plans. So I'm going to talk with you about all of that work. So as you well know, as a board, we finalized language and the strategic plan was adopted this past summer. Since then, our communications department has done a fantastic job of kind of making it pretty, if you will, easy to consume. And so I would give Amy and her team credit for some really good work. I know each of you have a copy here of what we would call a 4-pager, where we're just outlining again, in a really nice graphic way, what our mission, our beliefs, our objectives, the strategies that have been prioritized. A nice thank you to the team from Dr. Lawson. So just a really great way to be able to consume that strategic plan, just a good visual for it. So wanted to make sure that exists. Also, there's lots of information in addition to this on our website, but that's one of the steps that we've taken since then. It's just, again, making it easy to consume because there is a lot of information. On the next slide, you'll see that this summer, we went through the process, as we talked about the next steps of prioritizing. So a team of district office staff members met together, engaged in this collaborative process where we really kind of talked through how might we go about prioritizing all of this work. Should we maybe begin with the things that we think are going to be the real heavy lifts and take almost 5 years to implement? Should we start with work that we're already engaged in, so on and so forth. And you can see on this slide where we landed was we thought there were some high leverage strategies that were wise to start with. There are a few things that we already had begun work with, and there were a few other things where we thought, you know what, this would be able to be accomplished within 1 year. And so that mentality drove the thinking of our prioritization process. So again, high leverage work that we're already started with, and you'll see as we go through that would relate to our work around Ruler, our work around Danielson. Also, how might we prioritize some things that we could get done within the first year? I think about communications handbook as a strategy. Some of the work we're doing around our safety efforts, right? So some work that we can just get done that first year. Those kind of work together in the way we prioritized our work. As I know you've already seen, we did create some district goals, and those goals begin with those three priorities, those three priority areas that also stem from that conversation: improving attendance, improved academic achievement, and improved sense of belonging. So in addition to prioritizing concepts, we wanted to also prioritize some student outcomes to come from that strategic. In our next slide then, again, I think you've already seen this. I know we've discussed already as a board those goals, and so I'm not necessarily going to review the goals for you tonight, but rather the theory of action that is grounded in those goals. So if you look at the work that the district has put forward together to say, okay, so if this is the strategic plan, these are the outcomes we want students to get. What are the steps that we believe we need to take as a district to help accomplish those outcomes? And you'll see in those theories of action that they tie back to the strategies suggested in the strategic plan, so that there's a super strong link between the strategic plan that's been adopted by the board, the work that the district is engaged in, and the student outcomes that we're working to accomplish. We've had administrator retreats, and we've brought our buildings with their teacher leader teams in order to kind of go over those district goals. And in the next few slides, you'll see examples of where the buildings have created building goals in areas of academics, attendance, and sense of belonging. So each of our buildings have goals that align to our district goals. Then their work aligns to the work of the theories of action that align in the strategic plan. So again, what you're going to see as a theme is a strong sense of alignment from the priorities and the work of the strategic plan to the work of the district and the buildings. I believe in the next slide here, you see examples of one of our elementary buildings in some of the work, not all of the work, but some of the work they're doing around attendance. Again, so they have an attendance goal. And here's a few of the action steps that they're taking to accomplish that attendance goal. I put this slide in to just help kind of see the structure by which our buildings do their action plans, right? So we've got the step that they're taking, how that relates to their MTSS improvement efforts. I can talk about that more in just a moment. Who's responsible for that? What evidence will they look to for success, and what's the timeline for that? So every month, I and other directors go meet with our principals in order to look at their professional development, talk with them about their efforts in their building. If the timing is pertinent, to review their current data, talk about their action steps towards their goals. So there's a good relationship between the work of the district and the meetings with principals in order to talk about how we're making progress towards this work, as well as how can we support them in their work towards professional development that's happening in their building. The next slide, if I'm going too fast, stop me at any moment.
I have a question.
Great.
So you, on the last slide, you say the responsible people are the attendance team, and you say meetings will be set up before school starts. So meetings with the attendance team, meetings with parents, meeting with.
Yeah, I would want to have that is an example of one of our buildings, one of our elementary buildings. So I would want to have that principal here to be able to talk about who's all on their team. Were they talking about meetings that go on throughout the year, or were they talking about meetings prior to the year? Some of the action plans that I read actually talked about meeting with people prior to the year. I apologize, I can't remember whether that was referenced to during the year or prior to the year
Okay.
beginning.
Thanks.
But we could at some point schedule an update around like bringing principals in, if that would be helpful to the board, and talk about, so what are some of the action steps you're doing and what has worked well for you and what your next steps might be, if we wanted a more results focus to that update. Again, I believe this is an elementary example of steps that one of our elementary buildings is taking towards accomplishing academic achievement. And again, I put that note at the bottom of that slide that the district office staff meets regularly, but we do that around all three goal areas. It's not just around academics. I know, for example, I think I've got on my schedule to go to one of our elementaries this Thursday. They just got their winter screening data in and they're holding a data day with their teachers. And so I'll get to see how they process that with their data, the data with their teachers, and how they start to take intervening steps based on that data. I know several other directors have been meeting very regularly with our principals to help them plan out their professional development. I just sat in a professional development with our math teachers this afternoon, led by one of our coordinators, where we're looking at our achievement data and talking about where we need to go with our programming. So again, my goal in saying that is to help you understand lots and lots of interaction between district office and the buildings around assisting those action steps in their professional development.
Just one question, and it's going back a slide again, and it's not even really a question, but the link we can't access from here. And so I would just be curious to see those, if you could send us the
Sure.
PowerPoint that we can access the links.
Sure, very good. And I think the last building goal example that I have was one of our secondaries and the action plans they have for increasing that sense of belonging. Again, my goal is to give you examples, but just know that every building has goals around improving attendance, improving academics, and improving a sense of belonging. All of them have action steps and systems for accountability. All of them have interaction with our district office. And again, from my perspective, the great piece of this is that all of that is well aligned to the objectives and the theories of action, the strategies as suggested in our strategic plan. So next, then we went about working to create some implementation guidance. All right. And I apologize, I don't have this in front of me, and I don't think we even have it in my classes would help me. To be honest with you. But the purpose of creating an implementation guidance document is to really provide clarity, both internally and externally. We intend this to be a public-facing document so that our community and our staff, as well as those who are accountable to make sure that implementation happens well, are really, really clear about the work of the strategic plan, including how is it going to be sequenced and prioritized. Right? So that's the purpose of that implementation guidance that we've created. I'd say we're almost done and ready to have that be shared publicly, and it'll be the body of what I speak with you for the rest of this presentation. It's for that implementation guidance is primarily organized around the 6 objectives that are approved in the strategic plan. And you'll see when we get into this kind of an example of that organization. You can see that as a system, we identified really some key principles in the process of implementation guidance, right? So we really approached this from the perspective of we have the plan, and now we need to be really mindful about how we implement the plan. That has to do with communication and clarity. That has to do with training of staff, and it has to do with accountability measures, right? And then, of course, the idea that as we implement strategies that increase academic achievement, attendance, safety, connectedness to school, community partnerships, that as we increase those outcomes for kids, the equity is embedded by getting better outcomes for all, right? It really references our definition of educational equity. So the next slides really start to take us through, oh, no, I apologize, one more before we get into the 6 objectives. One other aspect of the strategic plan implementation guidance is just kind of a broad overview, a 30,000-foot level, if you will, view of the work to be done. So Dan, if you'd scroll one more slide. Perfect. You'll see that on this slide in the implementation guidance, year by year for each 6 objectives, it kind of talks about, okay, so what, again, you'll see in a moment, it's going to get much more detailed. And then when we get to the accountability view, it gets even more detailed than that. But this is just kind of a one-pager of, if you wanted to look at the strategies and the sequencing that's intended in our strategic plan for each 6 objectives, what does that look like? Again, the goal of the implementation guidance is to make the planning clear, both for our community as well as for the implementers, right? Clarity precedes confidence. It's then in our next slide, thank you, Dan, where we start to see what that looks like broken down by objective. So here is an example of objective 1. You can see that from an organizational strategy, our implementation guidance, again, is primarily organized by objectives. Under that objective, you'll see the strategy. So it's either a strategy that was suggested by that action planning team or a strategy that's being implemented by the department or departments that are responsible for ensuring those outcomes. That strategy is then broken into phases. And those phases are then associated with timeframes of implementation. Right. So here you can see on the strategy of fully implementing ruler, there's actually several things that are planned to occur in phase 1, which will occur in the 23-24 school year. And then there's a phase 2 component that will occur over multiple years. But all of those will be broad brushstrokes that will be key to implementing our ruler strategy over multiple years. And that ruler strategy was one of the things that the action planning team suggested as key to accomplishing objective number 1. So this is a general frame of how each of those 6 objectives with the various strategies are broken down. The next series of slides show you an example from each of the 6 objectives. So the next slide shows you an example from objective 2. Again, I cut off the header, but it's the same thing. What's the strategy? What are the specific action steps? Who or what department is responsible? What's the anticipated time frame? And again, you can see this one here is about improving alignment of tier 1 instruction through the use of the tier 1 building blocks. That's one of the strategies that we are using in order to improve our instructional framework and programs. It was a strategy suggested by the action team, and we're already in progress on that work. Our next slide is an example of a strategy, its phases, timeframes, so on and so forth, for meeting diverse needs. And again, it's probably appropriate at this stage to say for each of these objectives, there's multiple strategies. I just wanted to show you some of the work that's being called for, and mostly I wanted to show you the organization of the implementation guidance. For objective 4, around organizational responsiveness and communication, you'll probably notice that a lot of that work is taking place already. There's a communication handbook already generated. Around building stakeholder engagement, there's multiple things here that I would say are maybe not as far along in implementation yet. Building that stakeholder engagement plan is something we're still working on as a district, right? So that would be an example of work that will be prioritized this year, but we're maybe not as far into that work as of October as we are with some of the other strategies that have already been mentioned. But because that's high leverage, right, and really key, it's still something that we intend to be accountable for this year. And the last example is around attracting and retaining high quality staff. And you can see there different strategies that span multiple years. I think only one of those actually has two phases. No, I'm sorry, two of them have two phases. So again, my goal in sharing this with you was not to necessarily share all of the work that's called for in the strategic plan, but to make sure you understand we are putting together implementation guidance. How is that guidance organized? How will that guidance be able to make clear the work that is occurring within the plan and the work that's occurring this year? Which departments could someone contact if they had questions about those? And then our next steps from here, which is our next slide, I believe, is to dig one layer deeper yet. And for those strategies and those phase one specific action steps called for in this year, to create an accountability tool for each of them that shows, okay, so what is a detailed action step? What's the timeline we expect that to get done in? What artifact or evidence will we looking? So it probably look more similar to those building action steps, like what we talked about. We've rolled this out to our team of directors over the last few weeks, and our directors are kind of in progress right now on creating these accountability tools for the phases that occur this year. So we've told them, don't necessarily create this accountability tool for phase two that's supposed to occur next year, or phase two that's supposed to occur 2 years from now. Just focus on this year and create this detailed accountability look for the things that are supposed to occur in the 23-24 school year. All right, that was a lot of stuff, but that kind of represents what the work of the district has been in order to move us towards clarity of implementation, both with expectation as well as how we'll go about measuring the impact of that implementation. So I would be happy to take your questions.
Well, thank you for the update. We appreciate it. It's great to see the work is starting to happen. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next is our public comments on discussion items, and we do not have anyone signed up for public comments, and no one signed up for the Zoom either. So we'll go ahead and open our public forum, and I'll read our statement on public comments. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And we do not have anyone signed up for public forum either. So I will close the public forum and move on to our consent items, and I will entertain a motion.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Franzen, seconded by Lankaitis. Superintendent Lawson, gifts to the district.
Yes, thank you. The superintendent's office received the completed form for and recommends acceptance of the following gifts. Miscellaneous instruments valued at $1,800 from Jim Beckwith for the for the benefit of the Ames High Band. 3 anonymous donors provided laundry kits at $380 in value for the benefit of the Ames Community School District, and $23.80 cash given by an anonymous donor for the benefit of the Lunch Hero program. That's all we have for the evening.
Thank you. It was moved by Franzen, seconded by Lankaitis to accept the consent items as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Moving on to our action items, we'll begin with our policies for action.
I move the board approve the policies as presented.
Second.
Moved by Franzen, seconded by Beerbaum. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. The 28E agreement with the Woodward Granger Community School District for the Grandwood Consortiums for the 23-24 school year.
I move the board approve the 28E agreements with Woodward Granger Community School District for the Grandwood Consortiums for the 2023-24 school year.
Second.
Moved by Linkaitis, seconded by Becker, and this will be a roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I would have said your name in just a second anyway.
I don't have my things set up.
That's okay.
Director Linkaitis,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
Director Franson,
Aye.
Director Becker. I am so sorry. I did not know this was a Director Beerbaum
Aye.
and Director Schultz Cook.
Aye.
I am so sorry.
That's okay. Passes 6-0. All right, moving on to our student representative board and staff items. We will begin this evening with our student representatives. Nothing for this evening? Okay, no problem. Items from the board. I did not note any requests from staff this evening. Are there other items from the board? Oh,
I noted, I think you asked for links.
that's why I didn't write it down. Yes, thank you.
Can I ask one more?
Yes.
Clarity. Do you just want the links that refer to what in
Yes.
tonight's presentation? Because lots of those action plans have lots of links.
No, just what's in the presentation to be able to actually click on those links would be helpful.
Very good.
Yep, thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Other items from the board? Items from the superintendent?
So briefly, just wanted to say thanks to the directors for the work that they've done around strategic plan. So they have been uber intentional in ensuring that the plan and the work of the plan implementation processes is aligned here at the district office, as well as the work that's happening in schools. And so again, everybody has been pushing collectively and collaboratively. So just wanted to tip my hat to the team and say thank you for that work.
Excellent. All right, we'll move on to our board planning calendar, and our next meeting will be October 23rd.
Sabrina, if I can make a comment about the board planning calendar.
yes,
I
please
think
do.
this is an appropriate
Yes.
point too.
Yes.
I wanted to let the board know that Sabrina and I are almost at the place where we are finished with the rough draft of the board handbook. But as a part of it, as we were going through things and working on things, we think it would be beneficial to make some improvements to the board planning calendar. And so I just wanted to provide the opportunity that if any of you, as you look at the board planning calendar and you have ideas of some improvements, let me know. I'm going to be working on it and getting a hold of JD, just because I think when my part was charged with a roadmap of the work for the board, and I think we already have something, but I think that it's been quite a few years since we've made any adjustments to it. So I wanted to invite that opportunity to all of you at this point, since that's what's on we look at it every meeting. So.
Thank you. Yes, I think it'll, we can make it more user-friendly for the board and the public. So, yes. And then Chris reminded me that we are going to need to call a special meeting this week for an item that just needs to be voted on, a contract that needs to be voted on. So we will reach out with
JD will pull.
Yeah.
For their
availability and try to get a quorum for later this week.
Okay, so this will be, do we have a sense of how long this meeting is likely to take?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 minutes, but in person. 2 minutes
Yes.
in person here. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. Anything else on the board planning calendar? Okay, we will take a 2-minute recess and move into our work session, and we will be ending our live broadcast at this time.